WWE SmackDown Results February 18, 2022, the WWE Elimination Chamber Go-Home edition of SmackDown on Fox opens up on a tape delay from the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. Michael Cole welcomes us, and he's joined at ringside by Corey Graves. Graves is replacing Pat McAfee again this week because McAfee was at the NFL Super Bowl last Friday when this episode was taped. We go right to the ring and Adam Pearce is out for a contract signing. He hypes Ronda Rousey and Naomi vs Sonya Deville and SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair for Elimination Chamber. Out first comes Deville, who still has her arm in a sling. Flair is out next and they enter the ring together. Out next comes Naomi, followed by Ronda Rousey. They also head to the ring together as Flair and Deville look on. Pearce speaks but Deville interrupts and says she knows how these contract signing works. She goes to sign and says maybe Pearce should explain it to Rousey and Naomi since they can't follow rules. They both mock her and she says she doesn't like them because they have no respect. Rousey and Naomi continue taunting Deville until Flair asks why they think this is so funny. Flair points to how she beat Naomi last week and how Rousey has never defeated her. They all argue until Rousey interrupts and tells Deville to sign the contract. Deville puts pen to paper, then Flair. Deville gives Rousey and Naomi one last chance to back out of the match. Naomi threatens her again. Flair reveals that Deville has a new stipulation for the match. Deville explains how Rousey told the WWE cameraman last week that she could easily beat Deville with one hand arm tied behind her back. Deville thought that was a badass idea, pure genius, so she talked to WWE higher ups and it's on the contract. Rousey will wrestle the match with one arm tied behind her back. Fans boo. Rousey smirks and signs the contract. Rousey says she will still tap dance on Deville's forehead with no hands, but the match is tomorrow and tonight she has two hands. She tosses the contract at Flair. Flair goes for her but gets slammed face first into the table. Rousey and Naomi then flip the table over on Flair and Deville. Naomi and Rousey stand tall together, taunting their opponents as Rousey's music starts up. We see recent happenings in the Sheamus and Ridge Holland vs Ricochet and Cesaro feud. Sheamus can't believe how Holland still let Ricochet get the best of him, even after the broken nose. Sheamus says he's never had an issue with taking care of Ricochet. Sheamus gets Holland hyped up and tells him to watch tonight as he takes Ricochet's head off. Sheamus vs Ricochet. We go back to the ring and out comes Sheamus with Ridge Holland as Samantha Irvin does the introductions. Back to commercial. Back from the break and the announcers hype tonight's face-off between Roman Reigns and Bill Goldberg. We go back to the ring and out comes Ricochet as Sheamus and Holland look on. We get a pre-recorded promo with Ricochet talking about getting the win tonight. The bell rings and Ricochet nails a big drop kick into the corner, and then another. Sheamus shoves him out of the corner and goes for a slam but Ricochet counters for a 2 count. Sheamus with a knee to the gut and a forearm over the back. Sheamus beats Ricochet around now. Ricochet with a kick and another drop kick to send Sheamus to the floor. Ricochet runs and leaps through the ropes with a flip, taking Sheamus down into the barrier. They bring it back in and go at it but Sheamus catches Ricochet with the Irish Curse backbreaker. Sheamus grounds Ricochet with a knee now. Sheamus works Ricochet over but Ricochet turns it around in the corner and unloads with chops and punches. Sheamus with a big forearm. Sheamus sends Ricochet face first into the turnbuckles, then hits a back suplex as Holland applauds. Sheamus grounds Ricochet. Ricochet fights up and out, then knees Sheamus in the jaw. Ricochet charges and they both tumble over the top rope but Ricochet hangs on and Sheamus hits the floor. Ricochet goes for a moonsault from the apron but Sheamus catches him in mid-air and delivers a big fall-away slam onto the announce table, sending Ricochet flying to the floor. We go back to commercial with Sheamus standing tall at ringside. Back from the break and Sheamus hits a big top rope clothesline. Sheamus continues to dominate, then hits 10 beats of the Bowden as Holland applauds from ringside. Sheamus clotheslines Ricochet back in from the apron and asks everyone if they are entertained. Sheamus keeps control and sends Ricochet to the corner. Ricochet ends up countering with a big tornado DDT. They both get up and unload on each other. Ricochet with a crossbody and a warning to Holland. Ricochet goes on and nails a springboard elbow, then a standing shooting star press for another close 2 count. Ricochet goes on and hits a big moonsault for 2. Ricochet is frustrated now. They go back and forth now, with Sheamus delivering an Alabama slam for a close 2 count. Sheamus keeps control and goes to the top, but Ricochet leaps up and brings him to the mat with a big Spanish fly. Sheamus kicks out just in time. Ricochet goes back up, but Holland distracts him from the apron. Sheamus misses a brogue kick and almost hits Holland as Ricochet moves. Ricochet comes right back with the recoil for the pin to win. Winner, Ricochet. After the match, Ricochet makes his exit as the music hits. Holland enters the ring to check on Sheamus, but Sheamus yells at him. They have words and Sheamus shoves Holland to the mat. Sheamus stares out at Ricochet on the stage as Holland stands behind him, looking down. Tonight's Progressive sponsored match flow replay looks at happenings between Sami Zayn and Rick Boogs and WWE Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura. Kayla Braxton is backstage with Zayn now. Kayla notes how Boogs isn't here tonight due to some suspicious faulty wiring, but Sami insists he had nothing to do with what happened to Boogs. Sami goes on about how there has been a conspiracy against him to keep him from the Intercontinental title. Sami says none of that matters because tonight will be the greatest night of his life as he regains the Intercontinental title. Sami dismisses Kayla so he can breathe and get ready for the match. We go back to commercial. Back from the break and the announcers hype The Undertaker's WWE Hall of Fame induction. We get a lengthy video package with highlights from Taker's career. We see the Bloodline backstage hanging out in WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns' locker room suite. Reigns and WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg will face off later tonight. Graves sends us to a lengthy video package for Goldberg vs. Reigns at WWE Elimination Chamber. SmackDown Tag Team Champion Jey Uso vs. Ivar. We go back to the ring and out come SmackDown Tag Team Champions the Usos, Jey Uso with Jimmy Uso. The Usos hit the ring and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and out come the Viking Raiders, Ivar with Eric. The announcers hype the Vikings vs. the Usos for WWE Elimination Chamber. The bell rings and Jey kicks Ivar in the gut, then unloads in the corner. Cole says the Vikings didn't come out with their war helmets because the Usos took them last week. Ivar fights back and ends up hitting a senton out of the corner for a close 2 count. Ivar with a big side slam, but he misses the follow-up splash as Jey moves. Jey super kicks Ivar for a 2 count. Jey keeps control and grounds Ivar in the middle of the ring now as Jimmy taunts Eric, who is rallying the crowd. Ivar fights up and out, does a cartwheel and catches a kick, but Uso nails an enziguri. Ivar comes back with a big clothesline, but he's slow to capitalize. Ivar stands tall in the corner, then charges with the big running senton in the opposite corner. Ivar goes to the top turnbuckle and hits a big flying splash for the pin, but Jimmy hits the ring and breaks the pin up for the disqualification. Winner by DQ, Ivar. After the bell, Eric hits the ring and attacks Jimmy, taking his headgear back and then knocking Jimmy out of the ring. The Usos take their titles and head up the ramp while the Vikings regain their headgear in the ring. We see last week's backstage confrontation between Drew McIntyre and Madcap Moss to set up their Falls Count Anywhere match at WWE Elimination Chamber. We go back to the ring and out comes McIntyre to a pop. He's carrying his sword Angela. Drew raises the sword at the entranceway and the pyro goes off before he marches to the ring. Drew will deliver the SmackDown Warriors final preparation next. Drew hits the turnbuckles to pose as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Drew takes the mic. He talks about some of his history with New Orleans. Drew has been doing some reflecting on his life and career, which almost ended because of this. He shows us a replay from WWE Day 1, where Moss and Happy Baron Corbin attacked him backstage. Drew says he wanted to play that clip only for his own benefit, so he would remember how he felt when the doctor told him he'd miss WrestleMania season. He recalls being WWE Champion during WrestleMania Season 2 years ago when he slayed Brock Lesnar, and says this year it's damn personal. He goes on about all the things he can do and all the ways he can beat Moss at Elimination Chamber. The music finally interrupts and out comes Moss and Corbin. Corbin tells Drew to listen to himself, and asks what kind of role model he's supposed to be to little Scottish kids. Moss taunts Drew over his neck, and says tomorrow they can fight all over the arena, but the joke is on Drew, because Moss is great in his environment, and he will finish what he and Corbin started at WWE Day 1. Moss cracks another joke about McIntyre's neck. He and Corbin laugh while the crowd boos. Drew says this whole situation is sad. He says Moss had terrible jokes but all the talent in the world, but he aligned himself with a piece of crap like Corbin and the biggest mistake he's made was coming for Drew. Drew goes on and says he will end and hurt Moss at Elimination Chamber, and it will be the night the laughter died. The music hits as Drew stands tall in the ring, staring out at Moss and Corbin. Kayla Braxton is backstage with WWE Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura. She asks Nakamura about his strategy for tonight with Rick Boogs sidelined. Nakamura says his plan is to kick Sami Zayn in the face. He goes on and says Zayn must really be insane if he thinks he can beat Nakamura for the title. Cole says Boogs is at home recuperating from what happened last week on the Insane show. WWE Intercontinental title match, Sami Zayn vs Shinsuke Nakamura. We go back to the ring and out comes WWE Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura to a pop. Nakamura hits the ring and poses as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and it's announced that Big E will be the honorary pace car driver at NASCAR's Daytona 500 on Sunday. We go back to the ring and Nakamura looks on as Sami Zayn makes his way out. Zayn has been #1 contender since winning the 12 Days of Christmas Gauntlet match on the December 24 SmackDown. We get formal ring introductions from Irvin now. The bell rings and they size each other up but Sami goes into the corner to stall. Nakamura kicks Sami in the head and Sami goes back to the ropes to stall. Fans chant for Nakamura now. Sami applies a headlock now. They go back to the corner and the referee forces a break. Zayn sneaks a right hand and beats Nakamura up in the corner. Nakamura gets whipped across the ring but he comes out of the corner with a flying kick. Nakamura with more kicks. Nakamura grounds Zayn and delivers knees. Nakamura drops Zayn in the corner and stomps away. Nakamura drapes Zayn over the top turnbuckle and delivers a high knee for a pop. Nakamura pulls Zayn to the apron, laying flat, and delivers a running knee. Nakamura goes for a knee drop to the back of Zayn's neck, but Zayn moves and Nakamura lands bad on the floor. Nakamura clutches his knee at ringside as Zayn looks on from the ring and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Zayn works Nakamura over while grounding him in a hold. Zayn drops an elbow for a 2 count, and another, and a third quick pin attempt. Zayn shows some frustration now. They get up and Zayn unloads with chops to the chest. Zayn clotheslines Nakamura for another 2 count. Zayn grounds Nakamura in the middle of the ring once again. Nakamura ends up countering and rolling Zayn into an armbar. Zayn rolls into a 2 count. They get up and trade strikes in the middle of the ring. Nakamura unloads with strikes, then drops Zayn with a shot over the back of the neck. Nakamura with a low drop kick to stun Zayn. Nakamura keeps control, decks Zayn in the corner and delivers the sliding German suplex. Nakamura goes on and covers for a 2 count. Zayn fights Nakamura off with elbows now. Sami ends up countering Nakamura and dropping him with a Mikonoka driver. Nakamura kicks out just in time. Nakamura goes to the floor to regroup. Sami follows and goes to leap through the corner ropes for the signature ring post tornado DDT but Nakamura cuts him off, laying him out with a big kick to the floor. Nakamura breaks the count and goes back out but Zayn sends him into the steel ring steps, knee first. Nakamura clutches the hurt knee as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Zayn is focusing on Nakamura's injured knee. Zayn takes them to the top but Nakamura sends Zayn back to the mat. Zayn nails a flying knee strike from the top but Zayn kicks out just in time. Zayn ducks a kick but Nakamura nails the follow-up kick to lay Zayn out. Nakamura rallies in the corner as fans cheer him on. Zayn dodges the running kick attempt then comes back with a blue thunder bomb. Nakamura kicks out just before the 3 count. Zayn shows some frustration now as fans chant for the champ. Zayn unloads with rights and lefts in the corner, then stomps away as the referee backs him off with a warning. Fans boo Zayn. Zayn mocks Nakamura and tells him to bring it. Zayn then stomps away in the corner some more. Nakamura catches a kick and unloads with strikes now. Nakamura with big knee strikes against the ropes, then Nakamura stomps away. Nakamura tells Zayn to bring it now as fans pop. Zayn charges but Nakamura levels him to daze him. Nakamura stomps away while Zayn is back down against the bottom rope. The referee checks on Zayn. Nakamura readies for the Kinshasa but Zayn rolls to the floor to avoid it as fans boo him. Zayn ends up wrapping Nakamura's hurt knee around the ring post and slamming it over and over as Nakamura yells out in pain. The boos get louder. Nakamura tries to get feeling back in his leg as Zayn brings it back in. Zayn blocks a kick, takes Nakamura back down by his leg and rolls him into a pin for the title win out of nowhere. Winner and new WWE Intercontinental Champion, Sami Zayn. After the match, Zayn takes the title and stands tall as his music hits. We go to replays. The referee checks on Nakamura, who is still clutching his knee. Zayn drops to his knees and poses with the Intercontinental title. We get a video for Black History Month that shows WWE Hall of Famer Booker T visiting kids at Fort Oak Cliff in the Dallas area. We see the locker room door of WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Aaliyah is backstage congratulating Ricochet on his win over Sheamus. She goes on about being impressed with the win. He talks about how accomplished Sheamus is but can't understand why he's tried making Ricochet's life so hard. Ricochet goes on and says he realized Sheamus' past could be his future. Ricochet agrees that this was a good win, then walks off. New WWE Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn walks up to Aaliyah and asks if she's familiar with the title since she was talking about big wins. He brags some more to her and walks off, stopping to glow to a few staffers. We get a video package for the WWE title Elimination Chamber match. We go back to the ring and out comes WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman. Reigns raises the title and the pyro goes off. He marches to the ring with Heyman as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and Reigns is in the ring with Heyman. He raises the strap again as more pyro goes off. The announcers go over the WWE Elimination Chamber card for tomorrow. We go back to the ring and Reigns calls on New Orleans to acknowledge him. The taped crowd is hot and loud. Reigns then calls on Heyman to celebrate him. Heyman responds with a grand introduction for the tribal chief, including a line where he says being near Reigns is spiritually orgasmic. Heyman plays to the crowd for heat and they interrupt. Heyman scolds them and goes on with his introduction for Reigns. The music finally hits and fans begin chanting for WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg. The camera cuts backstage to security knocking on Goldberg's locker room door. He makes his way out and fights through the pyro as Reigns looks on from the ring. Goldberg hits the ring and immediately drops his mic. Reigns smirks and says he was going to give Goldberg one last chance to acknowledge him, but Goldberg takes a few steps closer to Reigns. Reigns asks if he's going to walk up on him like that. The Goldberg chants get louder and Goldberg gets closer. Reigns warns him not to crowd him because he runs things around here now and this is his ring. Reigns says Goldberg is here to fight or talk, which is it? Goldberg says tomorrow, 12 o'clock, and he's got to apologize to everyone. He was wrong, Reigns isn't next. When it comes to the WWE Universal title, Goldberg is next. Fans pop as Goldberg drops the mic and faces off with Reigns in the middle of the ring. Goldberg barks in Reigns' face as the Elimination Chamber Go Home edition of SmackDown goes off the air.